Hello, everyone. I'm Catherine Anaya, and welcome to Conversations with Catherine. I am joined today by a very good friend of mine, Monique Porras. She's the owner of the Kensington Group, which is a national executive recruiting firm, and she's the co-founder of Be Empowered, Be Fearless Girls Mentoring Program. And it's always a pleasure to see you, Monique.
Nice to see you, Catherine. Thank you.
Yes, I'm really excited to talk to you about this girls program because we haven't talked about it in a while. And I want to make sure that people understand that this is something that really has made a difference and will continue to make a difference even in these challenging times. So let's start by talking about how it started. As an idea for a magazine photo shoot to send a message about the importance of leading youth. How did that translate into this conversation, this idea, and then this program that has clearly made a difference?
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for allowing me to share. It was, oh gosh, it was thought of so organically. I mean, it was interesting. So I was being featured in this book. I'd already been featured in it before. And that was really about me, right? Myself and my business. But, the second time around, I'm like, I want to do something pretty, like a social statement. And one of the things I firmly believed as a female, diversity female in this market, as a business owner and leader, I was like, I want to show, that we need to lead the youth behind us and young women. And so that's just kind of how the idea came about. I ended up, calling one of my girlfriends here who is an assistant principal for a Title I school in the Alhambra School District, and just letting her know my idea of the photo shoot. And so just kind of through talking, she's like, wait, I might be able to help you. And that's what ignited all of this. And so we ended up putting a proposal together, pitching it to the school board and the district office, basically. And so fast, they approved it. And then we had to create the curriculum. And so the foundation behind that was, teaching them what basically my parents taught me growing up, just as to become a strong woman and be a leader and have no fears. And so that's kind of where the name came from, to establish no fear mindset and to empower them to think bigger and better. And so it was.
Go ahead.
All right, it was born from there. That's just kind of how it happened.
Well, you launched in this school district in Phoenix because you had this connection. But really, it was, in my opinion, based on how you describe it, exactly the way it should have been, because there are certain challenges that a lot of the young girls that you were coming across were dealing with in the area at the time. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, and it still is a high trauma area. So it is a very high trauma zip code and area surrounding that school. And so it is a middle school. The stories, just speaking to police and community leaders that know that area very well, I really got a good idea of what these children were facing. One of the things that we got to do was, as we talked to them, they had a peace summit, and I asked them to tell their stories. And if anybody could hear things that I heard of these stories, most adults don't even go through. And so it is very impacting. You have to just, have the strength and stamina to hear these stories, but to stay and really help guide them. And so that area is critical. And it will continue to be critical. Their education, their family, their foundations, they're just not all kind of a cookie cutter look. They've got a lot to face. And so school for many of them is refuge. Honestly, it's where they get their meals. It's where they have their interaction. It's where they get away from the high trauma, at home. And so imagine now, fast forward through what we've been going through. Think about that. High trauma is very, very high, even through pandemic, because there is no outlet. There is nowhere to go. And for those that may have abuse and things like that, I've talked to the nonprofits that provide services. These numbers are about to explode and have been exploding. And so I just think of those girls, and all the kids in those areas. So, it's a lot. It's a lot, and they need our help.
Well, and you've had to obviously put the program on hold because the kids aren't in school. And as you mentioned, now you have the added trauma of being in a pandemic situation and not being able to go to what has been their refuge. So talk to me a little bit about kind of where this has evolved since
Yeah.
March, April, when we were really in the throes of this pandemic, as we are still. How have you been able to keep in touch with anybody, kind of keep the planning process going for when we might get to the other side of this?
Yeah, and then we've been in talks all throughout this. Unfortunately, keeping in contact with the girls has been a little challenging. But as much as I can get some insight of what's happening, I do. But we have been talking very closely of how to evolve the program, how to expand it. Even going into this new school year, whatever that may look like. But do we have to address some of the quarantine, right, battles and things like that? And so we're really just kind of going over curriculum and what we're going to do for the program, and not knowing what's happening with the school year either, or how it will start. We're coming up with lots of ideas. So there's been lots of conversations. We're not abandoning them. We're not going to leave them. I mean, as much as we can do, we're going to do it. And as soon as we can do, we're going to do it. And that's our goal. So it will be interesting to see, but we've got the plans happening. And and we still want to do some of the initiatives that we talked about that we were planning to do last year.
Well, it is such a fluid situation. Talk to me a little bit about the impact that this program did make with the girls that you have been able to help up to this point.
Yeah, and most of the impact I just saw firsthand. It's amazing how fast they absorb, the things that we were talking about, the main topics that we all deal with as women in life, emotional independence, financial independence, even the respect that you command when you walk into a room. The impact was fast, and it was so apparent. One of the funny stories was the first class we ever did was about eye contact, body positioning, the respect that you command in a room. And when I first started and I shook all their hands when they walked in, they'd never met me, and it was like the most meek handshakes ever, and no eye contact. And we did a whole lesson. I'm like, if I can pull my hand away, you are not giving me a powerful enough handshake, sending that powerful message. And so we did an exercise in the room, and by the end of it, like some of them I couldn't even get out, and so the assistant principal was telling me, Monique, all day and all this week they have been shaking everyone's hands, and I'm like, thank you, and that's how fast the impact happens. So I bring in women leaders that mirror kind of them, the diversity of the girls, and would come and speak on different topics. And so I had some dynamic women that used their time and came and talked to them about each of the topics. And so it wasn't always just me talking to them, and they saw it too. I mean, we did some kind of social media initiatives. They created their own hashtags, and we asked these girls, what would be your hashtag to define you? And their responses, I gotta tell you, Catherine, many times I had to hold back tears, because It's like, wow, you think of how they live every day, and they're able to come out with something so positive of what hashtag would define them, and amazing stuff like hashtag I'm powerful, hashtag, I can do anything. I mean, these girls, and I said, use this every day when you're posting, all your friends' stuff and, things like that. But the impact was huge. Even down to saving money.
Which is so important, because that's not what is taught in schools the way it was when we were in school.
Yep. I had a high-level banker that came in, and she spoke to them and made jars and had money, and they were like, I'm keeping this because my parents will take my money away from me. And they're like, I'm going to hide this. And just the desire to want to save, that's what we want to do, instill in them, and the impact was huge. It was good. And the being in the book was just the icing on the cake for them. I taught them a power stance, and in that same class with the handshake, and none of them had that. And by the time that photo shoot came from that book, man, their power stance was strong, and they did it, and they were listening, and they wanted it, so.
Well, you could see it, the transformation, in more ways than one, in person and obviously in that photo, right?
Yep. And they go through a big growth spurt in middle school, as you know. And
it's a tough time.
it's a tough time. And, you know, even through that year and going on to this next year, it was to see them grow just, you know, height wise and look more like young adult women, you know, and flourish. And hi, Miss Monique. And I'd be in the school for many reasons, you know, but they'd, you know, stop me in the halls, and their confidence and their eye contact, it was still carried through, you know, a year after starting the program. So that's all I ask for, is that they remember those things.
It's
So,
just, it's so incredible. Every time you talk about it, you know, the passion that comes through in what you're doing, and clearly the impact is there. So, you know, let's hope that we can at least get to a situation where even potentially you could do this online for these girls.
yes,
But we're, you know, just the students in general are facing so many challenges, remote
yep,
learning as it is. So I know it's tough.
yeah,
You had talked to me the last time we talked about the program, which I think was earlier this year. You had talked to me about a very special room that they were creating. Tell
yeah.
me a little about that, and where that kind of left off.
Yeah, well, you know, so one of the things I wanted to do differently for the second term, I'll call it, or second year, was I wanted to teach the girls to leave a legacy, leave their impact, right? You got to pay it forward, no matter what, you know. And so one of the things that we had them do is we had them come up with ideas of what they think the school needs. And so, you know, it was anything from, you know, there's a lot of litter in the campus. We need to have a formal like cleanup, you know, system to help keep the school clean. And Serenity Room was one of the others. Now they're high trauma, and they wanted to do something for all the students there, to have a retreat. There's a lot of anxiety, and this came from them. We have a lot of friends that have anxiety, and we want them to have a place to go to in the middle of the day to retreat to. And so there was about 4 ideas on the table, and we let them do kind of a democratic system, and they voted. And so Serenity Room was what they had picked. And so I wanted to instill some of the business things that we do. When we start a business, what do? We start with a business plan. So I wanted to teach these girls how to do a business plan. So Eric and I came up with curriculum to do that, mapped it out, whiteboarded it, and we took a picture in this big empty room that was going to be the Serenity Room. And we actually walked around the school, you know, and picked the real estate, so to speak, in the school that would be that Serenity Room. And they come up with the ideas. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's where we were. And I had community leaders that have always supported my initiatives, like Monique, we're on it. We want to contribute to that Serenity Room. But then coronavirus came. And so,
Yep.
you know, it ended up completely completely on hold. So, you know, it didn't get to happen. Now, you know, some of those girls might be even moving on to high school and things like that. So, you know, maybe not that class, but we are determined to continue, you know, an initiative like that. If we can keep the Serenity Room, we want to do it, you know, and just make it happen. They need it. The school needs it. All the students need it. And I still want the girls to pioneer it.
I
So,
love that idea. It's so necessary and so impactful.
yeah.
We are talking about, you know, this being a fluid situation. So if somebody is watching, maybe they want to help, maybe they
Yep.
want to volunteer, maybe they know someone who at some point on the other side of this pandemic would really benefit from the program. How can they get involved and find out more information?
Yeah, and so that is, as you said, it is still fluid, and so patience, number one. But ping me, email me, you know, call me if you already know my number, you know, and just what I'm doing is kind of creating like a list of, okay, I've got, you know, these resources, you want to help here and there, and so if I can get that logged in and remember that, so then when we do have go time, depending on what happens with the school year, we can make it happen. I'll know exactly who all my resources are and where they want to help. So I want to hear all the ideas, or if they just want to talk and get caught up on where we're at with it, I'm more than happy to share it. So email me, call me, and you know, from a financial perspective, we're going to need it. From donated items, we would need it as we do it, but we've got to see what we can do, I think, with this Serenity Room in the new school year. But like you mentioned, online, even if we have to start the program online, I may want some of those powerful, especially female leaders, to be part of those, maybe some of those online, to help with certain topics. We can still do this online. We can still provide emotional support and life skills, right, for them to learn. And so if that's where they want to help, I'll take it on that end too. So I'm open to talking about it.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for all you do for young girls. Like I said, middle school is tough. It's a very tough time. So, having been there myself, I remember just how important it was to have unique and special role models in my life. So I certainly do appreciate what you are doing with that. I want to talk to you a little bit about your hometown, Washington, D.C., because you are always very proud of your hometown. And I don't know, you just...
I've been here.
Yes,
I've been
we
in
talked
for a
about
long
that.
time, but I still,
yes,
I still forget where I came from.
We talk about that because you and I have had many conversations about the importance of diversity in all aspects of life. And I know you recently went back to DC, the first time since Black Lives Movement really took shape and form and was on the minds of everybody across the country, around the world. And you specifically visited Black Lives Matter Plaza. Yes. Tell me about what that was like for you.
Oh gosh, Catherine, it was phenomenal. It was, the minute I got into the city, it was where I wanted to go. And so we beelined straight there. I'd seen, prior to being there, obviously everything on TV, like I think most of us did. And they were, I believe, the first to kind of do that on the street and make a huge visual statement, right? And as we know, anything in Washington, D.C., and I grew up, exposed to all this, it's the heart of like laws and movements and protests and voices and, everything you can think of. And so what better place to be in, right? And so, went right there. And it is just remarkable, the blocks of and how big it is. In fact, when you're standing on the street, you can't make out really what it says. It's that huge. And so, but to see the energy there, and it was beautiful. I took videos of all backgrounds and ages. There's a lot of vendors selling, Black Lives Matters, or just unifying message, shirts and things like that all around there. There's music happening of all kinds, people just playing their instruments, and people just walking, and just to watch everyone absorbing all that in. I was doing it too. And, you look at the buildings around, and you see the support that businesses, major organizations are giving, and they'll have it up in their windows, and Black Lives Matter, or, anything about injustice, all kinds of messages were happening in the windows. So just beautiful, just remarkable. And where it was positioned, I know there was strategy there, and I don't care what political lines you fall into, but to see that for the movement of just, human decency, just remarkable. Remarkable is the word I come up with. So,
well, and you've been a long time advocate for diversity, and so this had to have been very special, emotional for you to see this movement take form and shape the way it has, and especially in your hometown.
Yeah. I grew up, I come from a diverse background. I've got, what I say, every nationality possible, I think, in me. I empathize with every one of my ancestries and backgrounds, and, and have family. I have family in the deep South. Can you imagine? I mean, think of segregation time frame. My family had to go through that in Alabama. I've been raised, just knowing the struggle and the injustices that have happened. And then even me, everyone wants to put me in a box. Probably every day I get asked, what are you? And so just, knowing that too, to be back home and seeing that, and just a lifelong of even how my mom grew up in Alabama, and coming from a biracial, parents and family, it's huge. It's huge, and we have a long way to go. I mean, people like you and us, with our voices, we need to push that, but the action needs to continue, and we can't be quiet. We can't be silent. And even my business, right? I'm in the business of recruiting, and we have now all these companies really pushing these D&I, diversity and inclusion initiatives. And so, these are the conversations I'm having in the last several weeks since this social initiative and movement has happened. What can these companies do? And a lot of companies had D&I, right, divisions, but were they really doing enough,
Right.
to bring in the diversity talent, or were they looking in the right places? So these are some of the consulting conversations that my firm is doing, because we can help that. And I think my background and having, the DC connections and ties and growing up in that area, I've seen how companies have done it. They've been doing it there for many, many years. So how can we do that in other companies and help them with it? So it's a big initiative. It's happening even down to my business level, right? And we got to be proponents and keep it going.
We certainly do. Important conversations we need to keep having, important work you're doing, and important leadership that you are continuing to make here in our community. So I thank you, Monique, so much for what you do and for your friendship.
Oh, I appreciate you so much, Catherine. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for watching Conversations with Catherine. Please remember to hit the subscribe button, like, and comment while you're here. I'll see you next time.